This is The Breakdown. What? Hey, everybody.
Hey folks, it's Jeff Messer doing a breakdown for Issues With, and I'm super happy about the guest that we have lined up for today's conversation. Somebody that I have been, well, Facebook stalking like all of us do, especially in times of quarantine. I think the Facebook stalking has probably gone up even more. But the cool thing is I Facebook stalk artists around the world and folks who are doing projects on Kickstarter and things that I think look really, really cool and are worth talking about. So I reached out and I invited our next guest to join us here for a conversation about a really super cool project that he's got going on Kickstarter, but also to talk about just himself, his career, things that he's been involved with, which, by the way, some super cool stuff. And of course, we're in the week of May the 4th and of course Star Wars Day and all of that good stuff. And my next guest has done some really cool work in the world of Star Wars as well. Welcoming to the show a guy with 3 M's as his initials, Monte Michael Moore. And I guess you have to, do the Monte part because Michael Moore, of course, is already well known and depending on who you talk to, well regarded or villainized person. So Monte Michael Moore, or as you might just call him, right?
And
what's up, buddy?
Monty, my friends, all of that.
Yeah, Monte. That's a good name, though. It's good to see you, man. How are you holding up in the times of quarantine and crisis?
I've been highly productive, and I live in beautiful Colorado, so spring has sprung, and like everybody, there's some adaptation for being home so much. But for me, having the amount of work that I do for comics projects and things like that, I actually do have a Star Wars project going. Unfortunately, it's not one that I can talk about due to the fact that it's tied maybe to current TV series. I'll just leave it at that. Then Loco Hero. I always have a list of commissions. I just finished a Lady Death cover today for Brian Polito over at Coffin Comics, one of my regular customers, and I'm painting 2 or 3 covers for Loco Hero at the moment.
That's the good part about the quarantine or the time of everybody staying at home is for artists, that just means there's no excuse not to get ahead on your work or get caught up. So It works really well.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of our summer convention schedules kind of, wiped clean at the moment. The only one that hasn't canceled for me is Gen Con, which is the big gaming convention at the end of summer, August. But my guess is that might be canceled as well.
It feels like this year, the year of 2020, is going to be a lost year for Comic-Cons, music concerts, any of these large gatherings. Of course, it was very disheartening to hear that San Diego Comic-Con canceled, first time in over 50 years that they've been doing this. Erring on the side of caution, obviously. I was there last year for my first ever San Diego Comic-Con, and my heart broke when I heard that they weren't having one this year. And I know you've been to San Diego many, many times. And we'll get to it in a little bit in the conversation. The current project you're doing, Loco Hero, the backstory behind that has to do with San Diego Comic-Con. So we'll get you to tell us a little bit about that. But first, give us the lowdown. Tell us about who you are, how you started in the industry. You've worked for, as we said, Lucasfilm, DC, Marvel, many, many other clients over the years. When, where, and how did all of that start? Give us the superhero secret origin for Monte Michael Moore.
I was fortunate enough to meet a couple of guys who were self-publishing their own comic back in 1992. And I was a senior in college coming out of art school here in Colorado. And they invited me, they actually hired me to airbrush the cover for their own comic book, which was going to be called Lords of Light. And we did end up publishing it. It was under the title Lords because there was a similar novel that had been written by Harlan Ellison with a similar title. Anyway, we went to San Diego Comic-Con in 1993 to promote our book. We had 5,000 self-funded comics from a loan that was taken from the parents, just kind of like Eastman and Laird did. And so we went to San Diego. I ended up coloring the entire comic book by hand with the airbrush, and kind of got the bug for comics. I grew up more of a gaming nerd. I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. Every tabletop game there was back then that was a role-playing game. So I was very steeped in that. And so I started in comics, and then around the mid-90s, I kind of started getting a lot more work in gaming. I went to Gen Con, the big gaming convention, and eventually I started working on a lot of card games at the time were very popular, and they need a lot of art. So I did work on Magic the Gathering. Harry Potter had a card game, Legend of the Five Rings, and I also do a lot of writing. I've written 11 screenplays. I've had one feature film already made. A number of scripts have been optioned. So to kind of bring my own stories back and publish my own comics is, I think, sort of a natural progression over what's so far been about 28-year career.
Wow, congratulations. And of course, I didn't mention, but you did bring it up there. You've worked in the film industry a little bit here and there as well, and had some things produced, a lot of fun things that I saw on your IMDb, including a bit of a Star Wars parody, I guess. We call it a parody.
Yeah, I'd kind of forgotten about that. When I got interested in the film industry, I went and I took a semester of film school so I could kind of learn what everybody's jobs were and how to do everything. And my final project that first semester was I decided to make a Star Wars fan because Lucasfilm had what they called the Star Wars Fan Movie Challenge. And I made a movie in my basement, spent about $600 to make it. And we ended up being one of the top 25 finalists in the world out of 200, I think, to 300 entries.
Wow.
And yep. And then during Star Wars Celebration that year, which I was one of the artists at, our films all played, and they were played on Spike TV and that sort of thing. So that was a lot of fun. And I just like being creative. So building a set that kind of looks like the Mos Eisley Cantina in my basement was pretty fun. I couldn't get away with it today because now we have a finished basement. Back then I had an unfinished basement.
I was going to say the temptation would be, once you build it, to just leave it up and turn it into like your geek cave, your hangout.
I used it for part of that year for my convention booth.
Nice. For
back walls. And then for many years it continued to be part of the Halloween decor.
Perfect. Always get a lot of good use out of something like that. And geeks, nerds, comic nerds, all that, we collect. We're not used to throwing anything away. No.
It's very difficult for us. We have like, even here in my studio, there's little things all over shelves that line the entire studio, which is kind of common for us artists.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Now, so was the film, the Star Wars film thing, was that how you got more involved with the Lucasfilm, or did that relationship come before?
It was actually before.
Okay.
I did my first officially licensed project in 1998. I did trading cards for Revenge of the Sith. And then when I went to Celebration 5, I met a licensee who was doing they had a license for camping chairs and kids items and sleeping bags. And so I was their exclusive designer for a number of years, and all the art and designs, including the R2-D2 chair that people might own and have sold through thinkgeek.com, carried some of our items. And people don't know it, but those are actually all my designs.
Very cool. Well, congrats. It sounds like you've at least maintained a pretty fun life as a geek nerd creator. Let's kind of bounce up to the main feature, if you will. We're talking about Loco Hero, which is the current project that you have going currently on Kickstarter. Launched a couple of weeks ago. I'm happy to say I'm one of the folks supporting it. I'm a big believer in what folks are doing with Kickstarter as a platform to get creative projects out there, and especially now. There was a little bit of a weird time in March where I think people pumped the brakes a little bit on Kickstarter when the coronavirus thing took off, and nobody was really certain of where, when, and how they were going to get money coming in. There was a little bit of uncertainty there, and so we had a couple of weeks where Kickstarter, I think, slowed down because people were apprehensive. And then Diamond announced they weren't shipping comics for a couple of months, and suddenly now Kickstarter is just ramped back up. I think at a hugely accelerated pace. You got yours funded first day, right? Within a matter of hours.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes. Yeah. I mean, how crazy. But great.
But we had what you were talking about with March. I have a small game company. We have a couple of games on the market, and we had a very family fun kinetic card game about flipping cards, and it's called Horseshoes and Hand Grenades, like Close Enough, Horseshoes and Hand Grenades. And unfortunately, we started it in late February, and everything just kind of hit the fan. We were funding along just fine. Our goal was about $5,000, and we hit $3,000. And practically to the day that it was announced that, hey, things are a lot worse, and here comes lockdown, it just stopped. And for 2 weeks, I don't think we had maybe 1 or 2 pledges total. Wow. And so that was the first project that I'd ever been a co-part of that actually didn't fund. Yeah. And so I wasn't planning on launching my comics Kickstarter until I was invited to be a guest on an online show, much like yours here, for an event that was called CyberCon. And we were talking about the world of Kickstarter, and they were saying, well, there's about 30% less comic projects right now than there normally are, but all indications are the same amount of money is being spent there. So you have less competition. And I started Loco Hero in 2014. So I was already ready to kind of be close to launch around January. And I was waiting on some variant covers and a few other things, but all 48 pages of the book were done.
Nice.
So I was just kind of going along at my own pace. And so when I heard that, I literally went from a dead stop, like I had dropped the ball on the 1 yard line, to in 4 days we launched.
Nice.
And I think by the end of the first day, it was over 10,000, I think.
Yeah, pretty amazing. And it's a great campaign. Tell us about the story and take us back to the San Diego Comic-Con of the past, where you came up with the idea of this character in this book.
Yeah, so 2014, I was at San Diego Comic-Con, which I attend every year. And I was in front of the convention center. It's the end of the night. I was going to the underground parking. And I'd actually had some movie interviews earlier in the day talking about what's popular. And we were talking about superhero culture, Kick-Ass and popular movies at the time. So in my brain, I'm trying to think, well, what could I have? Because I didn't have any superhero stories. So a group of cosplayers is coming towards me on my left, all dressed as superheroes. The costume convention, the costume contest was going that night. And then at the same time, a woman clearly struggling with mental illness, pushing her cart with all her belongings. So having a very loud argument with herself. She was clearly losing. And there was just this lightning bolt idea of, what if I had a superhero that lived on the streets and was homeless and struggling with her own reality and thought she was a superhero, went out and dressed like a superhero and fought crime, but actually had no powers whatsoever. So she exists in our real world. And I do bring in comic books as part of the lore. There's a character that reads comic books in it, and part of the story actually goes along with her story. And so in her reality, she thinks superheroes do certain things. They wear tight-fitting clothing, and they're strong and powerful. And in her mind, her ski goggles on her head might be night vision goggles that give her superior sight. And she puts on some slightly, padded, they're really just rollerblade pads, but she thinks that they're her armor. And there's one scene where she's dressing up and she's like, well, Batman wears all this armor. And then she stops and she goes, yeah, but Wonder Woman's stronger because she doesn't need all that armor. And so she doesn't put on a lot of that stuff. But her clothing, her outfit is made up of things from the donations bin at the shelter where she volunteers. So everything is that she has is discarded from other people's lives, much like some of the people who live on the street. We think of them as sometimes discarded people. And so her outfit is made up of, kind of a leftover jazzercise outfit from the 80s, ski goggles, rollerblade pads. This is what she's wearing because that's what she has access to. But she goes out to fight crime, and after a head injury, she has a dissociative disorder, and she can't keep things straight. And she thinks that this guy who is a business tycoon, who's a real shady character, who wants to redevelop the slums where they all live, she thinks he's actually building a supervillain headquarters. So she goes out onto the streets to try to stop his street thugs, which are trying to push out all of the people who live there so that they can go to the city council and go, no, we're not impacting anyone. And so in her brain, if she's going to confront a thug in an alley, that person might appear like a ninja or a mutant or a black knight. And if he's a black knight, she must be a white knight. Or if they're ninjas, she's a Ronin or a samurai. And so she's transported in her head to this thing of this paradigm of what's good and evil, a good and evil battle look like. And so she's not traveling in time, she's traveling in her head. But it makes for great visual opportunities for the storytelling to step out of the comic. Right. And some of the variant covers, which you can see over my one shoulder here, by some of the other artists, one of them by Monte Michael, this one in the lower corner, has half of the image where she's in her outfit and she's facing off against a thug with a knife. But split right down the middle, we see what she's seeing. And he's a undead wearing a hawk mask with a spear, and then she must be a gladiator in ancient Rome. And so that's how she's visualizing this epic battle that is really two people duking it out in an alley. Right.
That's very, very cool. And so you've been working on this since sometime in 2014 after your trip to San Diego.
Yeah, and I struggled with a long time, like what part was I going to do? Was I okay being the writer, producer, or just doing covers? And I have done a fully illustrated story before many, many years ago, and it's a lot of time investment. Sure, and I didn't want to step away from doing all the work that I could do for my clients, that I built a career. And so what I decided to do was pay it forward in a way that I was getting paid to do covers for comic books, and then taking some of that money and hiring a penciler, inker, a colorist, a letterers, an entire art team. So I'm keeping all of that money in the industry by hiring and supporting other artists. Right. And the two artists on the inside of the book were at the beginning of their career. They're not guys who've done work for Marvel or DC, but very, very good artists. So I'm giving them a chance to showcase their skills on a major platform. And then I'm bringing in some very well-established artists who are friends of mine, Mike Crone, Ebass, Jesse Witchman, Kincaid, DeBelfo, all doing covers. And a lot of us just trade covers with each other. You do something for my character, I'll do something for yours when the time comes. And so it's very collaborative. And I gave them very much free reign to do whatever they wanted. And so it's a nice balance between some more unknowns who have great promise and some artists who have, like me, almost 20, 30 years in the industry.
Yeah, and I think that things like Kickstarter and the way that you're doing this project, the way a lot of people do projects like this, it really is, I think, the future of the comic industry. You're either, working at DC and Marvel and you've got your name on a big book, or you're working on projects like these. I really think these are the new independents of the comic book industry. I think what you're doing is the way of the future, really. And that's what's convinced me that Kickstarter is the place to find the real passion projects, because a lot of this, we see big name people like Jim Starlin, Carl Kiesel, Tom Grummett, Ron Randall, Mike Grell. They're all going to Kickstarter now because they can't get DC or Marvel or any of these other companies to pick up their ideas and run with them, because everybody is working on IP for movies and TV that they already own. And it's just the mentality is totally different. And so now you have a way to go, hey, I've got a fan base, or I've got fans out there who are looking for a certain type of thing they're not getting from the main industry. Let me give it to them direct, one-to-one. I think this is the way of the future. I don't know how you feel about that, but
it's very exciting. I've done a number of Kickstarter projects for art-related things. I've published my own art books, and there's some great things about Kickstarter. One, obviously, you own all your own characters and your IP, but people like Jim Starlin and Mike Grell, you're able to bank on 40 years in the industry and really motivate that fan base. And almost nobody's done that better than Brian Pulido with Lady Death, which he got the rights back to his character in 2014, took control of the ship, started eventually doing new stories, new Kickstarters. Now, as sort of in indie comics, the king of the Kickstarters, he's grown his business to having over 10 employees. And they've, in many ways, as the sort of self-branded outlaw publisher, you rely solely on your fan base. You do excellent customer service. You don't worry about damage from Diamond. You don't worry about shipping dates. You do everything through Kickstarter and directly through your own newsletters, your own website. And I can tell you his business is flourishing, and he's literally gone right around normal distribution channels. And now I think that the comic stores can actually, I'm pretty sure, can work direct with them to also get copies for their stores. But for the first couple of years, it was like, you know what? We're taking care of the fans first, because we as creators and artists, we often got cut out of that business side of things. Yeah. And most of the time I'm a hired hand. This gets hired to do art for other people. But when you take control of your own business, you can be the director of your own ship. And, I think I've backed like maybe 64 projects, and I've done 4 or 5 of my own. So I love the fact that as a creator platform, it can bring me anything from a brand new iPod charger, that has some new gizmo, to that guy who only needs to raise $250 to $1,000 to bring their comic to life.
Yeah,
that's an easy thing to support and say, I remember being that guy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it gives a lot of people a chance where they might not have that chance otherwise to get their stuff out there. It really is kind of amazing. Now, you mentioned some of the guys you were working with, artists, letterers, colorists, and so forth on your project. Let's give them a little bit of a shout out. Who are the folks you've got involved?
Yeah, so Donnie Hadawaha is in Indonesia. He's penciling and inking the entire book. I found him through Dave Campetti at Glasshouse Graphics. I've known Dave for many, many years, and he's represented some of my work and got me projects with Image and such. And then I was talking to some other people here in Denver about looking for a colorist, and Sean Callahan happens to be right here in Denver. We had met at Comic Cons as well before I even hired him. And it's kind of come together as a collaborative project where then I could also ask other people that I know, because I started lettering it myself, and I was like, what am I doing? There's people who are going to do this better and faster than I can. And so that's why I realized that my time is better spent managing the project rather than trying to do it all. And so my 2 letters, Jonathan and Jamie, are in the UK, and they also came through a referral as well. And so it's kind of fun that the project is very international. We've got people in a couple different countries, got a couple of Coloradans, but everything's done virtual these days. You can do everything that needs to be done with Dropbox and Google Docs. And hey, Monty, can you check this out? Can you approve this? Hey, great, looks great. Let me send you payment for 5 pages. And if anybody slowed the project down, it was probably me, because I had to travel so much for conventions that they'd say, hey, can you review those pages? And I'm like, I have San Diego this week and next week. Let me get back to you in August. And
it's tough being king.
Well, I've learned, how to manage my time better. And I also have to keep in mind, if they're doing their work and they're finished or wrapping up with something, they probably also want to get paid just like I do when I finish up a project, because that's how it works. Usually we would do like a 5 pages at a time kind of a deal. And so I think it helps being an artist in the industry and having done entire comic books that were drawn and fully painted. So I get it. And I tried to give as much free reign as possible. Most of the time I just say, this is all the stuff that happens on the page. I didn't do breakdowns for them or anything. And there was very, very few changes. There was a couple things here and there. I'd say, well, let's change this in this box. But I wasn't having people change hand position or anything like that. It has to do more with consistency of costume and character.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and there's something really exhilarating about watching the process and seeing it come to life in each step of the process. I know you got to be thrilled when you start seeing the pages come in. You see it the first time colored with the letters.
It's awesome.
It really is. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
And of course, in the big companies, all of that stuff is kind of, down the food chain somewhere, and it's mass production. And, you're lucky if you get to see all of it before the final product is printed. But here you're in control.
Yeah, and you can share it with the fans along the way. So,
right.
With Loco Hero, I started the page on Facebook back in 2014. And sometimes I'd go a long period and I wouldn't have anything new to show.
Sure.
And I would try to show things other related from other projects, or I'd repost similar content, or maybe I'd share part of the script or a breakdown or something like that. And that way people can see part of the process. And it also gets people more invested in it when they say, hey, I like Monte. I like what he's doing. I want to support the project. And it doesn't matter if it's $5 or 500. Support is support. And I've gone from having a maximum amount of backers of 150 on previous projects to just we're a little shy of under 400, and we're barely over a week into the campaign. So I'm ecstatic about all the new backers because I've never done a comics project. And one of the things that I think is also getting traction with people is the fact that I have a specialty cover in the rewards called Honor Bound. And it's based on a drawing of mine, which is right here. And the Honor Bound cover is for PTSD awareness. And so this is the main character. She kind of gets out of the hospital, and you can see her tattoo there that says Army of One. And so I have a specialty cover where I've kind of laid a little bit of the flag over it, and she's kind of weighed down by the burdens of her past and what she's struggling with now. And then I have some of the comic pages laid in behind it. And we reached out to Operation Second Chance, which is in Washington, D.C., and works directly with veterans as they struggle with emotional, physical, and mental issues transitioning from the service to civilian life. And if you don't get that kind of support and with these kinds of things, you have a greater chance of ending up on the streets. True. And so we decided to go with an organization that we knew the funds would have oversight and they can go directly to where they're supposed to go. And so all of the proceeds from that book, which is our #1 seller, are going to be donated to Operation Second Chance for issue 1. Maybe for issue 2, we'll spread it around to some other philanthropic, possibly Denver's homeless, things like that, so that we can have the maximum reach. So that particular book, the Honor Bound book, is not limited. I want it to be able to generate funds for our veterans and people struggling for years to come.
Well, it looks like it's a great piece of art, great causes, really good stuff you're doing. Congratulations on that. And kudos to you, man, for sure. Now, we'll wrap things up here by letting people know more about the Kickstarter. How much longer? What is the end date for the Kickstarter? How can people jump on board? And also, Monte, tell us how people can find out more about you in general with your website, your contact, social media, Twitter, all the ways that people want to social media stalk you or find out more about what you're doing and support what you're doing.
Great, I appreciate it. So the campaign still has just under 3 weeks left. So it ends around May 20th, May 21st, I believe. I think the 21st. And so you can search Loco Hero. You can also see lots of posts of me on social media. So you can follow me at my full name. You can send me a friend request at Monte Michael Moore. Or you can, if you want to just follow my artist page, you're welcome to do that at Monte M. Moore. And Loco Hero has its own page on Facebook. So you could search out Loco Hero Comic. And then I have a website, and on Twitter and Instagram, my website is called Maverick Arts. So to make it a little bit shorter, on Twitter, I'm Mav Arts Monte. On Instagram, it's just Mav Arts. And my website is Mav Arts, short for Maverick Arts. And so if you search for any of those things, you'll find lots of information about the social media. I have lots of followers on my artist page, and I keep my pages pretty strictly about art and the projects that I'm doing. So my pages are welcome for everyone. I believe we all have rights to our own opinions about all the personal things in our life, whether it's religion, politics, beliefs. So everybody is welcome, but my pages are pretty much focused on the artwork and the creation, helping other artists. I have a Facebook group with almost 5,000 members called Professional Comic Book Artists and More, and where we share a lot of professional art, and we try to share insights to also help other artists who want to learn more and be inspired. So that's kind of the gist. I probably post on social media 5, sometimes 10 times a day.
Sure, yeah.
I also have a YouTube channel called Art Attack. So you can search Monte Moore's Art Attack. There's about 70 how-to and time-lapse videos. I would say my most popular one is called How to Break Into Comics and Gaming. And I just give some creator insight into, these are some of the things I think you should do to stand a better chance.
Absolutely. And some of those pages with the artists and the collectives out there really are fun pages and fun groups to, I'm a member of a bunch of those because I really want to see what people are doing that I might not otherwise find out about. And, you know, one of those great projects, of course, was Loco Hero. And this project, although I've been following Monte for a while on social media, this one really caught my attention. And Monte, I got to say, congratulations on all the success so far. We'll see how much further it can go. You've still got several weeks left on this one. And when can people expect the finished product? What's your potential ship date?
You know, we could be a little bit earlier than August, although that's when, you know, we're sort of planning on it. As I said, the drawings are done, the coloring is done. I'm finishing up a few covers now. There's only 5 pages that need to be lettered, but I do want to spend some time with it and really, you know, put it through the editorial process of making sure it's the quality product that I want it to be, because you only get one first issue. And so that, you know, we're shooting for the end of summer, and if we over deliver and it comes early, then that's great too. But there's some rewards that if people back art books or a digital version, things like that, they're probably going to see some rewards ship earlier.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations again on the project. I will we'll make sure we keep sharing with our folks on our page and throughout the interwebs. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the book. It looks great. It sounds like a great character and a great concept. What can I say? Continued success to you, Monte, and we'll have you back later on, maybe when the book comes out, and we can do a review of it or something. You know, lots of fun stuff, because we love having great guests on the show to chat with. And in lieu of being able to see people like you at comic book conventions, this is the next best thing. So let us know when you got something going on, and we'll be happy to share it with our fans. Thank you to Monte Michael Moore for joining us here on Issues With for another breakdown. That's going to do it for this one, and we will see you guys next time.